Hi, I'm David with EV World News. We talk about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. I'm back today with our resident engineer, Mike Herzog. How's it going today, Mike?
All right, David. Glad to be here.
All right. Well, I'm back home, so a little better setup than trying to broadcast. I wasn't able to actually even do a broadcast with Bill from Florida. The next day, we had inclement weather. It was really cold. I didn't have a good spot that I could do shoot from indoors. So it's not one of these things where I want to go do it from like a coffee shop or something like that, just a little too weird. Anyways, I had something kind of funny. This article, it says Tesla lost its legal battle against Top Gear, but did it win the war? So many years ago, the TV show Top Gear and did a show about the Tesla Roadster back in 2011, so 13 years ago. Okay. And Jeremy Clarkson did not like EVs. He probably still doesn't. I don't know, how he feels about them now. I haven't watched Top Gear in years, but
is it still on the air? I haven't seen that forever.
Well, it went away, and then it went to another channel from the BBC, and
I'm sure it was still floating out there somewhere. And yeah, okay.
I mean, I used to subscribe to a cable package that had BBC just for that show, but I used to watch that all the time. I mean, it was
a great show.
Yeah. Anyways, but Tesla sued, saying that the whole episode they did on the Roadster was staged, and they made a lot of things not work on the Roadster as part of the episode. So Tesla lost in court because they were saying, well, nobody could expect to have real world conditions to be the same as what Top Gear was doing. Okay. But Top Gear was clearly trying to make it look bad. But they were in court for so many years that it looks like the negative publicity really boosted Tesla exposure and sales. Like they were constantly getting free advertising out. Of course, they were spending money on legal or whatever. But
I'm sure, legal lawyers.
Yeah, that it really worked out a lot better.
Still coming up, wow, that's great.
Well, people always talk about Tesla not paying for advertising. Okay, unlike the major auto dealers, that Tesla just relies on word of mouth and other things going on. But the truth is, I have seen Tesla ads on YouTube. Okay, really? I've been fed Tesla ads on YouTube. Yes, not very often. It hasn't happened in a while, but I have seen them before. And but you very rarely see any kind of now they send me emails all the time. Okay, but I'm on their lists, and that's understandable. But they mostly market to people that have previously done business with them. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, it's interesting to see. But
God, if you're not getting advertising about that stuff with your just this podcast and search history, all of those, they're not doing a lot of advertising because you would be a big red.
Right. Yeah.
This guy, Marcus.
I get so many ads for the Hummer EV. It is probably the one ad I get the most. And man, I want a crab walk so bad. Because they send me that ad all the time, and it's like, push the button and crab walk.
They still do the video where it's in a tight canyon and it's going around a boulder in there. And it's like, ooh.
No, I always get the one where it's in the city and you got to parallel park the damn thing. Okay. Yeah, I saw a Hummer EV pickup truck at Costco a couple days ago, and I didn't know they also made it as the pickup style. I knew that they made it as the SUV style, but this one was the pickup style, which I've never seen that compared out there. I mean, it's not like GM doesn't have enough EV trucks. I mean, they have the Silverado and the Sierra and all that, so they've certainly got it covered. But anyways, I just thought that was kind of an interesting article because of the fact that the lawsuit gave a lot, when Tesla was not a household word, gave a lot of brand information. I mean, when you think about it, back then, people didn't know who Elon Musk was either, right? I mean, with even with PayPal. Peter Thiel was a much more
He
influential
was a much bigger name at that
name
point in time. Yep.
than Musk. But then, Musk decided to take all of his money he made from PayPal and he put half of it in Tesla and half of it into SpaceX.
SpaceX, yeah.
Yeah, and slept on people's couches for for a couple of years. It's really funny. It's like he's certainly not a person that seems, people like to say he's like greedy or whatever. It's like he doesn't seem that concerned about money. Money is just, it's just like when he was told he was the richest man in the world. He's like, that's pretty cool. Not expected, but whatever. And he just goes right on back to doing whatever he's doing, kind of thing. Um, Anyways, I wanted to talk, and we have a number of articles about cattle or CATL. Like I've said before, we're in Nebraska. We call it cattle. I've had viewers complain that it's CATL, but we're in Nebraska. We're going to continue to call it cattle. And
I need to keep that in mind because I'm sure I picked it up from you and or Bill, but it's like, yeah, it's cattle, and you bring it up, just say that in the wrong spat, and what the hell, cattle? Like, yeah, they're the Chinese
CATL,
company that's doing the
yeah.
modular systems and the skateboard. Yeah,
Yeah,
cattle.
so yeah, hopefully don't get you in any trouble in any weird engineering circles or anything like that. But and we talk about new tech all the time, right? It's like it's not the new technology we see isn't really believable unless it's somebody like CATL, LG, Tesla, BYD,
Mhm.
putting the product out there in the market. And in this particular case, CATL's been working on sodium ion batteries. They're already putting them in, they've already making them for cars. Okay, so it's not completely new technology, but some Chinese EVs are already using sodium ion batteries. We don't have any in the United States yet, I don't believe, that are using them. But they have the same performance in minus 40-degree weather, which that's Celsius and Fahrenheit
That's
converge
really
at minus
cool.
40.
Yep.
Yeah. Which that would be Fairbanks, Alaska cold.
That's cold.
Okay.
I mean, that
That's the
is.
only US town I'm aware of that hits that temperature.
I was going to say that would set a record damn near everywhere in the
Well,
U.S. That
I
it does not
lived
get
in
that.
Grand Forks, North Dakota during the coldest winter of the last 100 years. Lucky me. And it was minus 54 one day. So
Yeesh.
that was one day. I don't recall it ever being colder than minus 40 other than that. Normally, most of the winter, the extreme cold would be in the minus 20s. Okay. A minus 30 was almost unheard of, but minus 20 was really common. Anywhere from minus 20 to about minus 35 or whatever. I remember there was a 2-week stretch, though, where it didn't get above minus 20. Yeah. Yeah. And the newspapers were running ads talking about how we were entering a new global ice age. This was in the late 80s, and it was really believable. When you lived in Grand
Yeah,
Forks,
when it's like
you
that for
were
2 weeks.
praying for
Yeah.
global warming, right? And I've often said this whole global warming thing, if it's real, it's the Canadians are behind it.
It's too cold. Yeah. Instead of minus 20 for 2 weeks, it's going to be zero for those 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Balmy
And
zero.
when I was in college, if it was sunny out and it broke freezing outside during the day, people would be out tanning,
Yeah.
shirtless, out tanning.
Yeah.
And it was just crazy to think about. That's only 600 miles north of here.
Mm.
Okay. But anyways, this technology because it's cattle, we know this is
I
coming to
believe
market.
it. I believe
It's
it. In the market.
absolutely coming. Okay. So you hear all this stuff. EVs don't work in cold weather. Tesla sells crazy amounts of cars in Canada and Norway. Okay. Those are two outside of China. Those are big markets for Tesla. And, they're
I will
dealing with
say,
the
so
gold.
I drive an EV, and we have had the past 2 or 3 weeks where we're at in the Midwest. It has been up and down and up and down, and we had a 0-degree day or single digit degree day, and 2 days later is 45. And it's just been
Right.
up and down. And I notice it, driving the EV where those cold days, I mean, I don't know, 10 to 40% reduction in range, depending on how cold that day is. Now, we haven't had a really, really cold day where we're at that yet. We haven't dropped to negative or anything like that, but um, it's impactful. When you kind of plan your day out and look, and it's like, well, I got my tank was full, or I forgot to charge last night, or I'll be fine. And then you come out on one of these days and it's 10 degrees out, and like, boy, I really thought I was at 130 miles when I put this in the garage last night. Now it's 80, and what happened? But I would appreciate that. I would appreciate a battery that is immune from some of those fluctuations and what it looks like. Just because it is in that space, it's unpredictable. You try to plan for it. I found too, just the driving of it in cold weather in those spaces, like it fluctuates a lot more as you're driving. Like that thing is shedding miles in a hurry when you have the heat blaring, and I got my heated steering wheel on and the heated seats on. It's
Right.
yeah, it's like a 1 to 2 or 1 to 3, actual miles driven versus what you're losing in range. So like you said, it's you can't throw a dart at a wall without hitting a new battery breakthrough or new development, or somebody's revolutionizing it. It's like some guy in their garage, some guy or gal in a lab. But if it's CATL, I believe it. Like it's going to
Right.
be on the market. It's going to be mass produced. It's going to make its way into vehicles.
Yeah. I mean, we cover so many game changing technologies in the EV space and the hydrogen space and all of
Mm-hmm.
that. And most of them, it's like, hey, we're probably never gonna see this.
Yep.
But this being CATL, we're gonna see that. It's just
Yep.
like when Tesla says they're coming out with something. It may take a couple of years longer than expected, but we're gonna see it,
Mm-hmm.
And so, anyways, I thought that was kind of an interesting thing to see. And some people may think that CATL's irrelevant, but they are the largest battery seller, in the world. They sell to Tesla. They sell to most EV companies, buy some portion of their batteries from CATL. So, while we are trying to develop battery manufacturing here in the United States, and there is some battery manufacturing. I mean, Tesla manufactures batteries here in the United States, and
People are building plants. It's
people are
part of
building plants.
IIJA, the Inflation Reduction Act. Like some of those dollars are going towards building stateside and domestic manufacturing for sure.
Yeah, and hopefully none of that gets killed. I think it's really so many people are so short-sighted and think that like EVs are a fad or something like that. And it's like, we know that eventually they're going to replace internal combustion,
Yeah.
but it's just a matter of time. You may still 50 years from now, there will still probably be some, gas powered cars running around, but it'll be more like,
Novelty.
novelty. It's like, here, look at what we used to drive.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like
I've seen some headlines coming out, and the position they're starting to hint at for the administration is like, well, no, we're not backing away. We just want to make this domestic. Like, this is good. We want flexibility. We want energy security. We want all of these things. But most importantly, like, we want those jobs to be here. We want the supply chain to be here, in control. So we'll see as those official policies come out and people get into places. But I sincerely hope, and I'm starting to believe a little bit more, like, okay, this people can see the value of having that diverse portfolio, all these different plans, future forward thinking, but keep the jobs here. Just keep the jobs here.
So when you mentioned that, I actually have one of the articles I want to cover today. It comes from Clean Technica. And, one of the arguments is that EVs are reducing the amount of jobs. Now, this is true in some ways. Like, it's really going to hurt car dealerships because car dealerships depend on servicing your car to stay in business. They don't make their money really off of, they make money off of sale of cars, but not the new cars. The new cars don't really pay the bills for the dealership. It's getting to do the warranty work, all the other service work that comes in.
Yeah, it's all of those things that
selling used cars, things like that. That's That's where the dealership makes their money. And this is one of the reasons why they don't like EVs, is because they already know EVs don't have, what is it? There's 2,000, up to 2,000 moving parts in a gas car, and there's like 20 in
Yeah.
a EV. Okay. I mean, it's when you have 1% the number of parts that can break, it's
Hmm.
a huge difference in the amount of labor it takes to upkeep those. Now, you still have to change
Yep.
tires. You're probably, you know, you're eventually probably going to have to change your brakes. You might change them once in the lifetime of your EV,
Mhm.
as opposed to doing it every few years in a gas car. I mean, there's so many things you're not going to do. The same kind of oil. You do have some coolant, but that coolant isn't changed very often.
It's not change. I mean, like windshield wiper fluid, things
Yeah.
like that. There is still some of it. What's interesting is I wonder if it'll become, it's more of a software support. Because like my vehicle, where it's come through and a new patch came through, and it's IT service. I mean, it's somebody sitting there with a computer and saying, "Well, we need to update the firmware." And every 2 hours I go through and hit start, and it uploads and downloads and
Mhm.
replaces and tells me it was successful or not successful, and then hit start on the next one, and it just processes through that way. So maybe they'll get something out of that, but it's not the same, that's for sure.
Well, this Clean Technica article says a University of Michigan study published earlier this year found that automotive assembly jobs increased as much as 10 times with EV production as opposed to fossil fuel production. Now, I have to look at this a little more. U.S. auto plants producing battery EVs have required a larger workforce than traditional internal combustion engine plants, a finding that runs counter to early predictions about how EVs would impact the industry. They've shown that plants in the ramp up stages of transitioning saw assembly jobs increase as much as 10x. And at one plant studied, now with over a decade of production, the number of workers needed to make each vehicle has remained 3 times higher, which that's kind of shocking because there's fewer parts. So I'm
Yeah.
not sure exactly if now here's the possibility. So if you were making a Chevy Suburban, for instance, okay, there's probably parts that go into that Suburban. They're probably being made at 40 different supply chain places. And with the EVs, they're probably making those right there.
Yeah, on site.
So that's probably a big difference. Um, and this is one of the reasons why Teslas are produced cheaper, because they're not going out through a big supply
No, they
chain.
control the supply chain. I mean, it's
Yeah, they
in-house.
make everything.
Yep.
And now, it should make EVs popular among auto workers. Now, of course, they save buyers money when it comes to operational costs, but we need to get the upfront price of EVs down as low as upfront prices of comparably sized and designed gas-powered vehicles, because most people only look at the sticker price.
Mhm.
So it didn't really get into so much of this. Well, no, it does. Okay, EVs require approximately 100 fewer parts. There's been an expectations that it will require 30 to 40% fewer workers, or about 200,000 jobs in the US. The reasons that it's not been the case is investment and development of new manufacturing technologies, which often require more labor to improve, higher vehicle complexity. Companies beginning to manufacture EVs usually start out making premium vehicles with the most advanced features and technology. I guess that's a pretty good
That's
point, because
fair.
that has
That's fair.
been most adoption in the EV space has been closer to $100,000 than close to
Yeah,
$20,000.
then the lower end.
Okay. Some manufacturers have consolidated workers in a single central location to lower costs from outsourcing, a practice known as vertical integration. Well, this is what we're talking about with Tesla.
Yeah.
And, Tesla, Rivian, Lucid, they're all
Mhm.
producing their own things. Former Ford president and CEO James Hackett kicked off the idea that a transition to EVs would result in 30% fewer jobs back in 2017. And that claim has been repeated and repeated and repeated. It's a number that's been repeated by a lot of big names in the auto industry. But if you look closely, no one's really done the work to look at what real plants that have transitioned have done. But it looks like it really is creating all of the parts that
Yeah.
need to go in them.
Yep.
And that's an interesting find, because you would have just thought that, if you had traditional auto manufacturing, it would have gone the other direction, right?
100%. Why? And I can't imagine a more complicated system than a hybrid, like a plug-in hybrid, where it's you
Oh yeah,
have a complete electrical system and you still have the complete mechanical system, and then the interface. Like they have to.
right.
So from a complexity standpoint, I mean, we're at the peak right now, and not just hybrids or plug-in hybrids, all of the electronics that go into a modern vehicle. My God, like there is complexity associated with those. I mean,
Well,
I just have to imagine like a pure electric that goes down, but I don't know.
you know how we people always like to talk about EV fires and stuff like that, and in the plug-in hybrid space, and actually, I think it's just hybrids in general. So what is it? Gas cars catch fire at 60 times the rate of battery electric cars. Okay, but hybrids catch fire at 120 times the rate
Oh my,
of
of
EVs.
a
Yeah,
traditional
and it's
EV.
just because you have all that complexity, and you have so many more things that can go wrong. And to be fair, in a gas powered car, most of your fires are still electrical fires. Okay,
It's not the tanks blowing up. It's not
it's
an
not the
actual
tanks
movie.
blowing up or
Yeah.
something like that. It is, some wiring catching fire in somebody's engine, or something
Mm-hmm.
strange going on. All right, so we're going to tilt a little bit weird. So we talk on here a lot about how the United States has been transitioning away from coal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, apparently worldwide coal production, because of China, is actually still going up.
Okay.
Yeah, so um predictions of declining demand for the world's most polluting fossil fuel are premature, but we're burning more coal than ever because of China. The UK on October 1st, so they celebrated. It was the first day in 150 years when its power plants didn't burn a single lump of coal to generate electricity.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a
so
big deal. That's
yeah,
cool. Yeah.
no. Now they didn't say that they took down all of their coal plants, but they did not have to turn any of them um, on that day, on October 1st. Um, the very same day the UK went without coal-fired electricity, the world burned roughly 24 million metric tons of coal. Um, the world consumed on October 1st in one single day nearly 5 times more than Britain used in the whole year of 2023. 5 times more in one day than in a year. Okay. Coal demand set a record high in 24, according to the International Energy Agency's annual report published on Wednesday. The commodity is the most important contributor to global warming. Its consumption trends matter enormously for the fight against climate change. You know what? It's also,
Yeah. Lost you there for a second. There you go.
sorry, it's a huge, huge polluter. Even if we don't consider, you know, climate change and stuff like that, just for air quality, breathability. We've
Mhm.
talked about this, about if all these coal places, if there was 400 more nuclear power plants, how many more, you know, lives would
Yep.
be
Would have
extended.
been saved over time.
And it's just crazy to think about. Now, um, we're probably not affected over here in the United States by all that coal being burned in China as far as air pollution, but it's just awful for China, which
Oh,
at the same
for
time is the
Southeast
biggest
Asia.
adopter of EVs.
The it was about China's gotten a lot better, and their investment in renewables has been insane. But it was about a decade ago where stateside we were very much in a position like no new coal, no new coal. We're not going to add it. We're not going to permit any of that. And it was one of the God at the same time like it was a plant a week, or something like that was going up in China to keep up with their demand. And we're seeing it in India too, and it's tough to tell some of those developing economies and developing places like, well, we kind of powered our society and economic growth on coal for a long time, and it was cheap and easy and it was great. But now you guys can't do it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just
You
it's
guys missed the
hard
boat.
to get that message. Yeah,
You
yeah, you
guys
missed.
missed the boat. You know.
Yep, it's too late now. You got to do it in a more expensive way. Once again, I'm not advocating for more coal in places like that. I think it's been the workhorse that built Western society and civilization, and now we're going back to these more developing places and saying, no, you're not going to have that same cheap.
Well, I think it's one of the things that really holds back Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And just because the World Bank or some, there's money available for these developing countries, but if they try to produce electricity with coal or or petroleum or anything like that, they can't get the money. And so you got this conflict. It's like, well, it was great for Western civilization to use it, build into what it is today. But now we're trying to tell these societies that are, 100 years behind us in development or more, maybe 150 years in development, and they can't, use the same stuff. I think that's a really tough argument.
It's tough. It's a tough one. If you were trying to develop those nations, like, why? And at the end of the day, their contribution per capita is so much lower than the West, than the United States as it comes to global emissions. It's tough to make that argument, but I think it's the direction it has to go. It's just it's coal's not worldwide scale. Unfortunately, it's not going anywhere for a while. But it's still a workhorse. It's still a workhorse around the world that keeps the lights on.
I know some of the news stories that we get try to tell us that we've hit peak oil and some of that. And the thing is, on the flip side, I actually see oil production numbers too. And it's like, okay, oil production went up a couple percent, worldwide in the past year. But, gas car sales went down while EVs went up. Okay. So we know that EVs had an effect on that, but it's I've told people before, even if the entire world switched to all EVs for passenger transport, you'd only reduce the amount of oil used by 15%. It was something like 85% of petroleum products are not just general car fuel,
gasoline.
Yeah. Now that, some of that is for commercial use. Okay. Big trucks, delivery, stuff like that, commercial use. And then you've got aircraft,
aviation,
you've got ships,
yep.
And you got all these different things. And it's like, we talk about aviation, right? And all of these, plans out there for local short hop, 100-mile, 200-mile range aircraft. We're not talking about taking a flight across the country. Those cross-country flights aren't being, addressed quickly. Well, I was in Orlando last week. I saw where they'd had a record day this year where 102,000 people departed from the Orlando airport in one day. That is a lot of people flying, from, one airport in a single day. It's just hard to fathom that many people going through the doors and going through security, getting on airplanes, and airplanes hauling them off, 160 people at a time.
That's insane.
You figure that was probably 800, 900 commercial flights to haul all those people off.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of people going out there. All right, let's see. All right, so I want to cover this topic. You saw a BYD Seagull down in, what was it, Costa Rica?
Live and in person. Yep.
So, in November, BYD's $10,000 Seagull EV outsold all cars in China, including gas models. Again in November. So it wasn't the first time it's done it. So they sold 56,000 seagulls in November in China at around $10,000 a piece. That is really startling to think that there is a new car out there that people can buy for $10,000. You're not buying it in the United States at that price.
No, no,
It's
it's
not available
double
for
it,
sale
double
here.
it, and add some.
Yeah, I mean, there's what one looks like. I doubt that driver's as tall as I am that's in that car, but
They're not super tiny in person. It's a little car. It's a little car for sure, but it's not
mhm.
little Mr. Bean car or an old Geo Metro. It's bigger than one of those.
Yeah. So apparently it outsold the Tesla Model Y. So the Model Y, well, which is the best-selling car in the world.
In China, right?
Yeah, in China. We're only talking in China. The Model Y was the best-selling car in September, but it looks like um, the Seagull was number one in October and November. Let's see, 56,000 Seagulls sold last month, whereas the Model Y sales declined by 11% year over year, but still sold 44,500.
Wow.
They're getting a lot of competition over there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so many Chinese EV brands. There's a new version called the Seagull Honor Edition, starting at $9,700. It's even cheaper than the previous
It's
model,
cheap.
fuels its liberation battle against gas-powered cars. Now, one of the things BYD says they're not trying to take market share from Tesla. They're trying to take market share from Toyota. So they're trying to unseat the Toyota Corolla as the most popular car. Now,
Yeah,
I
popular
realize
car.
a lot of people don't care about China or whatever, but this is the future. This is the future of automotive, whether people want to believe it or not. These are car sales in China. Okay, so this is not the U.S. market. This is the Chinese market for November of 24. But the BYD Seagull will probably become the world's best-selling car at some point in the next year or two, as they roll it out to other places. But the Tesla Model Y is number one in the world, number two in China. I think in the United States it's like number 3 or 4, something like that.
The Model Y.
Yeah.
What's number? Is it still the F-150? Is that number one?
Yeah, it's like the F-150, the Toyota RAV4. In the US. Now, best-selling cars in the world, it's the Model Y, the Toyota Corolla, the Toyota Hilux. I'm trying to think. I think the Ford F-150 may be in the top 5 in the world. It's interesting to see what those world numbers look like, but the fact that the Toyota Hilux hasn't sold in the United States kind of tells you something. It tells you kind of where and the Hilux is a cheap pickup truck. Okay, it's like a $20,000 to $25,000 gas pickup that's sold all over the world. It's the number one seller for warlords across the country as a alternative military vehicle. You always see the technicals with machine gun mounted in the bed and all that, and it's always a Toyota Hilux. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just curious because we talk about it all the time, and anybody who watches or listens in on this podcast knows BYD. But if you did a man on the street type interview, like, do you know who BYD is? Have you ever heard? Just looking at this list right there, and the largest car market in the world, and how they are just dominating it as a company. And do you know who they are? Like, dude, you should probably learn who they are because it's a lot of sales, and they're
It's
actually
like,
doing good things out there.
what is the number one car market in the world?
Isn't it China? Or
It's China by a large margin. Okay. And on this list for November sales, out of those top 10, 2 are Tesla, 5 are BYD. Only 3 other companies, a Volkswagen, a Nissan, and an SGMW, Wuling. I'm not familiar with them, but I'm just saying there was
No,
hardly anybody
it's
else
called
even
Winning
represented.
EV. So they're in that space.
Yeah, this includes gas powered cars on this list too, by the way. Okay, so some of these could be gas powered, and some of them could be plug-in hybrids. So
Mhm.
this wasn't an EV list. Okay, um, but what I'm getting at is this is what the Chinese market looks like. This is where the rest of the world is going to be in a few years.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that BYD is going to be 5 of the top 10 in the world, but you're going to see some big changes. And Tesla is similarly in China as it is to the whole world. Now, you know, for those like you're saying who've never heard of BYD, what Omaha company owns 8% of BYD? It's really
Yeah.
fascinating. It's Berkshire Hathaway, led by Warren Buffett. Of course, if you ask people what Berkshire Hathaway was, they probably wouldn't know either.
They would know
It's
that.
really
Yeah.
funny when I meet people from other countries, they don't know
Real
what
estate.
Omaha is, but I
Uh,
say, oh, it's where Warren Buffett lives. And they're like, oh, yeah, like, oh, it must be important kind of thing. Because they all know who Warren Buffett is, right? But anyways, I thought that was kind of fascinating. And it's not like let's praise China day to day or anything like that, but I oddly had a lot of news about China. I have real disdain for Chinese stocks. So that because the country manipulates their currency and they do things to manipulate the prices of the stocks, the companies, while they may be on a stock exchange, they're still highly owned by the Chinese Communist Party, and there's monkey business going on in the stock market when you're dealing with one of these. So even if the Chinese company's on the New York Stock Exchange, I'm not a big fan. Okay,
makes
so
sense.
we'll just leave that at that. So don't, I get accused. I've seen some. Oh, are you guys getting paid by the CCP? It's like, hey, if you know where, I'll give you the address where they can send a check. If you know who I need to let know, or whatever. But I'm not. I'm certainly far from praising that. But we do see so much unique.
It's hard to argue with that table where it's like when you have an EV podcast and that's your space.
Right.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, that's
But
crazy.
so CATL co-develops 10 EV models with battery swap technology. Now, we're aware that NIO is like the first company to do battery swaps, but the idea is that instead of going and charging your battery, and this is also done with e-bikes. I've seen where they're doing it where your e-bike battery can be pulled out. You stick it on a thing, you check out the next one, you just put in a charged battery into your bike. But they're doing this with cars. And NIO started this, but CATL has co-developed 10 new electric vehicle models with automakers that use swappable batteries. Let me see. CATL's battery swapping brand EVOGO, EVOGO,
EV.
Choco Swap Battery, sounds like chocolate, will be rolled out this month. Let me see if it tells us who these companies are. CATL is looking to put up 1,000 battery swapping stations in 2025. The swappable batteries would come in 2 standard sizes to accelerate adoption, and the subscription fee for the Choco battery swapping service would start from 369 yuan per month. I don't know how the yuan converts. It's not like I don't have access to a computer, but let me see. NIO has opened its 2,800 power swapping station in China earlier this month.
2,800 of them?
2,800
I
swapping
had no
stations.
idea there were that many. I mean,
NIO,
granted, China's a giant country, but I was thinking it would be like 15. Just, hey, this
yeah.
is kind of experimental. How's it working?
No, we talk about the lack of EV infrastructure in the United States. Then we hear these numbers about China, and it's like, damn,
Wow.
damn. It's like we really are behind in the US. But um, NIO has executed 60 million battery swaps. Maybe they know what they're doing.
I just have a hard. So you think battery swap like e-bike? I get push it in, pull like my cordless drill. Yep.
Yeah,
Plug it in, plug it back into the wall. I just swap. But just the weight of batteries in a vehicle, like, God, that's an operation. And I know you plan for it and you have having the right equipment's 90% of the battle, but still, it'd be
I'm
hard.
sure it's probably on some platform that just rolls up to the
Yep.
car. You pull the one out, it just slides right onto the
Yep.
tray, and the other one just slides right in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it's, a pretty seamless thing, just like
I'm sure they've
how,
got it. They've apparently if
um,
they've done 60 million, they've got it down. But
well, think about this in the trucking industry. So if you go rent a moving truck, you have
mhm,
two types of trucks you can rent. You can rent like a U-Haul, which has the low dock, or you
mhm,
can rent any other brand which has a normal dock height door.
mhm.
Well, when do you think they came up with dock height for trucking?
Good idea.
I mean, would you thought maybe in the 1930s?
I guess probably. I'm sure it goes back to something like a carriage, or one of
So
those, or a
when I
train.
was in Memphis, I saw photographs from the 1890s of horse and buggies
Yeah, there you
backed
go.
up to the loading docks. Yeah, that was the height
That was the height.
on the buggies. It was dock height. So they've been doing that. Obviously, that means they were doing it earlier than that. Maybe it's been.
Mhm.
Um, what it probably had to do was probably the height of the deck of a train.
I would guess train. I would guess it would go
Yeah.
back to
So
train.
it probably is that same height as the floorboards of a train.
Yep.
It's probably how the trucks are. That's probably how the horse and buggy was, but
Mhm.
somebody had to standardize all that, right?
Yep.
So at some point, it's really weird to think about it. I mean, it's probably the same height today that it
That's been
probably was in 1860.
cool.
And I was just kind of thinking about that, when I see this, but that's crazy. Now, the article didn't tell us who the 10 companies they're partnering with to make EVs, because we know that CATL makes, we call them the skateboards.
Yep.
So the skateboard is essentially your four tires, the bottom of the car, all the batteries, all that. All you got to do is build a chassis, stick on top of it.
Yep. It's
So
just a nice platform,
yeah.
standardized, and yeah. If they're looking at battery swap out with that skateboard, and you can standardize on that design, like good for cattle.
So according to NEO, 60% of all the electricity used in NEO cars has been provided from battery swapping. Now,
Cool.
I could see this as a reasonable use case for apartment dwellers.
Hmm.
Okay, so because we think about this all the time, is like, well, EVs are great for homeowners that have a garage or have a dedicated parking spot where they can have a charger. Um, if you live in an apartment, do you really want to go spend 20 minutes charging your car once a week? Okay. And, whether it be even in your complex or somewhere else, you still got to go move your car out of that space, right?
Hmm.
And battery swapping is just as fast as filling up gas.
Hmm.
So it's an interesting, it's an interesting take on things. I don't know. What do you think, Mike? You think we'll see this in the United States at some point?
I think we have to. I think somebody's going to figure it out, and somebody's going to put those things together. Because it's not just apartment, big cities, where you
Mhm.
have dedicated. You might have a dedicated street spot or something out there like that, but you don't. Nobody's going to put a charger out there. Nobody's going to do those things. I think it's where everybody wants it to go. Because talking about why do we do things the way we've done it? Well, we expect it to be the gas station model. At
Mhm.
my convenience, I can get in and out. It's a 5-10 minute trip. Hey, if I just need to top off my tank to get a couple of gallons in, it's a 2-minute trip. And that's what it looks like. So I don't think we're going to get away from that. We're a culture of convenience and quickness, and people are going to want, yeah, I want to pop in and pop out and be on my merry way. So I
Well,
think
think about this.
figure it out,
I-
but I don't know.
If I'm a gas station owner, I would be worried about the EV transition, because since EV owners tend to charge at home, there's not the same need for them to go there. But your gas stations don't make money off of selling gas. They
They
make
make
money off of the
popping
store.
cigarettes.
Okay. Yeah. Lottery tickets, cigarettes, booze. sodas, things like
Mhm.
that, fast food. I mean, you look at some of the places here in Omaha, like Quick Trip. I mean, it's really like a restaurant. I
Oh,
mean,
they got yeah,
it,
they have little
it's
kitchen.
got outside seating, so you could
Mhm.
go in there and you can buy food and you go sit and eat outside. I mean, it's really, and you look at Casey's is really known for their pizza. Quick
Yeah.
Trip is as well, but they both really try to push themselves as pizza restaurants. So they see some of this. But if I were a gas station owner, I would absolutely want to be one of the stations that's providing battery
EV
swapping.
and battery swapping in it because you have captive audience. Even if it takes
Yes.
a few minutes, you're getting foot traffic into where you're
Yeah.
at.
But so let's say I had charging stations. Now, people that use the charging station, let's say it's taking them 20 minutes to charge. Okay, now
Mhm.
if you had like a Chevy Bolt, which is a slow charging car, it might take 40 minutes to charge.
Mhm.
But do I really want all of my spaces filled up with cars charging for 20 to 40 minutes? Because in
Oh,
those
rather than
places,
in
gas
and
stations
out.
don't have a lot of spaces, right?
No,
So you
fair
wouldn't
point.
want, yeah. So you really, it's kind of a challenge. Whereas the battery swap thing is just as fast, and it's like, doop, 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 doop,
Yeah,
you know,
you need 5 minutes to make that big gulp sale. Alright, I got a
yeah.
bag of chips and a big you don't need somebody to hang out for 25 minutes, like, in and out, in and out, in and out.
No, it's interesting thing to see, but that was one of the big things. But the big thing was that they're building 1,000. Oh, um, so CATL stands for Contemporary Amperex Technology. I guess they didn't want to just be CAT, so they took the L from technology.
I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah,
All the time people ask me, "What's BYD stand for?" Like, I
build
think
your dreams.
no, I know, it's like, "Yeah, build your dreams." Oh, that's right, but that one cattle,
It
nobody's
stands for
asking
Warren Buffett.
I get questions about BYD a lot, but,
Yeah, it stands for the Oracle of Omaha.
mhm.
Uh, um, let's see. It takes 100 seconds to do a battery swap.
What?
Uh, yeah, so the battery swap takes about 100 seconds, so a minute and 40 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah, that's so much faster than getting gas. That's about
I gotta call
half
you
the
guys
time it
on
takes
some
to
of
get
that. But
gas.
maybe by the time you're parked, you're in the right spot, you know. But it's if it's the gas analogy, yeah, by the time you actually stick your nozzle in the car, your credit card's in there. Do you want a car wash? What's your loyalty number? And it starts to finish. So I have to imagine there's still more time in uh, getting there, getting your spot in line, getting the car parked, yeah, just all of that. But maybe it's just the actual transition of cars off, battery out, battery in.
Okay, so the battery swapping is a subscription. Like I said, it was 369 yuan. That's $51 a month. So $51 a month, you can keep swapping it out
As
that's
much as
your
you
that's
want.
that's your fuel expense for the month. Um, they already CATL already has 107,000 subscription orders just right off the bat.
Right off that, 107,000.
1,000 right off the bat.
Wow.
Um, let's see. Some of the companies that it's jointly developing with are Changan Auto and FAW Group. I've heard of Changan. I'm not familiar with FAW. Um, their current batteries can offer, they do about 400 kilometers range. And these are LFP batteries. Let's see. But that's really quick to just
Mhm.
in and out. That's no
It's cool.
slower.
We should, I do one of these days find a video of it and just watch and see how it works. That'd be cool to see.
Let's see what we got here. So, there was somebody ran a Tesla Cybertruck in a race against a Chevy C4 Corvette. Now that's an older model. Okay. Um, here is a picture because currently we're on the C8 model Corvette. Okay. The last two have had a distinctly European look, the C7 and the C8, but this is the older style. They're racing against a Corvette. Now, the Cybertruck had 845 horsepower. The Corvette only produces 330. And let's see. Yeah, it won't beat the Corvette with going around laps. Obviously, it was beating it in
Just a straight shot.
yeah, in straight shot. I mean, so many vehicles just can't keep up with a Tesla straight shot. But Teslas aren't designed for racing. Straight ahead they're fine, but
Yeah.
not cornering. They're not. They don't have anything special. They're not designed as sports cars. They are
Well,
designed
that's
as
why I like articles like that, because that's exactly it. No, this is not a sports car. This is just a car, and it's competing against sports cars, that were designed for that, and cornering and going fast and having high acceleration. This is just the car that happens to do this while it's electric.
yeah. That all I had for today, and it did seem like an awful lot of Chinese coverage today. But like I was saying, that it was interesting because CATL's got some cool stuff going on, and BYD does as well. And it's despite how people want to argue that but buying EVs is sending money to China and all this other stuff. It's like, well, if you're buying Tesla, it's not. If you're buying Rivian, it's not. But the Chinese are the big leagues in auto manufacturing now. They dominate in gas cars, and they dominate.
And
They're
batteries,
dominating in
I
the
mean, they're
EVs.
still the fuel source for EV. I mean, they're killing it in the battery market.
Yeah, so I mean, it's important to keep an eye out on what they're doing. Anyways, Mike, I want to thank you for being on today. Well,
I
next week
won't
is
see you next
Christmas.
Wednesday. No, I'm not.
No,
All
I
right.
don't know.
Sorry,
I might.
David. I'm gonna break it to you. I'm not.
Yeah, I'll probably do a Tuesday show with Bill. We probably won't do Wednesday or Thursday. So next week will be kind of a light week. But anyways, Merry Christmas to you, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Okay. Thanks so much.